The massive arena on Vorthak Prime stretched out like a metal canyon under 3 purple suns. Commander Dae-Ho Kim stood on the human observation platform, watching thousands of alien beings fill the seats around them. His hands gripped the metal railing as he looked down at the sandy floor far below. "They think we are weak," said Captain Jae-Sung Park, standing beside him. The captain wore his best uniform, but even that looked simple compared to the gleaming armor worn by other species. "Look at how they stare at us." Dae-Ho nodded slowly. The human delegation had arrived on Vorthak Prime 3 days ago. Since then, every alien they met had looked at them with the same expression. It was the look someone gives to a small child who thinks they can lift a heavy rock. The humans were new to the Galactic community. Only 50 years had passed since Earth made first contact with alien life. Other species had been traveling between stars for thousands of years. They had weapons that could destroy planets and shields that could stop almost any attack. Humans had basic space travel and simple energy weapons. Dr. Min-A Kang adjusted her research tablet and looked around at the other species. "The Corvan Empire has been in space for 8,000 years, she said quietly to her colleague. "The Zephyrates have technology we cannot even understand. What are we doing here?" Her 8-year-old son Tae-Young sat beside her, swinging his legs from the tall chair. He was the only human child at the tournament, brought along because his mother could not find anyone to watch him on their home station. "Mom, why does everyone look so scary?" he asked. "They are not scary, just different," Dr. Kang replied, though she was not entirely sure she believed it herself. A deep horn sounded across the arena. The crowd noise dropped to whispers, then complete silence. Even the air recycling system seemed to quiet down. Ambassador Su Min-yoon, the head of the human delegation, straightened her diplomatic robes. "Citizens of the galaxy," announced a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "Today we witness the greatest test of strength and wisdom known to our civilization. The creature you are about to see has never been defeated. For 300 years, it has faced the greatest warriors from every corner of known space." A large door at the arena floor began to slide open. The metal groaned under its own weight. Darkness lay beyond the opening, so thick it seemed solid. "Warriors have died trying to defeat it," the voice continued. "Entire armies have failed. Scientists have studied it for decades without understanding how to control it. Today, one of our member species will attempt what no one has accomplished before." Tae-Young leaned forward in his seat. "What kind of animal is it, Mom?" Dr. Kang shook her head. "We do not know. The Galactic Council keeps it very secret. They only show it during these special tournaments." The first thing that emerged from the darkness was a claw. It was longer than a human arm, black as deep space and curved like a sword blade. Then came a massive foot, followed by a leg thicker than a tree trunk. The creature stepped into the arena light and gasps echoed through the crowd. It stood 12 feet tall at the shoulder. Its body was covered in scales that looked like black metal, each one the size of a dinner plate. Along its back ran a ridge of bone spikes that glowed with a faint red light. But it was the head that made even hardened warriors step back from the observation windows. The skull was long and narrow, filled with teeth that gleamed white against the dark interior of its mouth. Its eyes burned like red stars, scanning the crowd with an intelligence that was clearly more than animal. "The battle beast of Necros," whispered Ambassador Su Min-yoon. "I have seen recordings, but in person it is—" She did not finish the sentence. She did not need to. The creature moved across the arena floor with surprising grace for something so large. Its tail swept behind it, easily 20 feet long and ending in a cluster of bone spikes. When it breathed, small puffs of steam rose from its nostrils. "First challenger," announced the arena voice. "Corvan Empire Battlemaster Thix-9. A section of the arena wall slid away, revealing a figure in golden armor. The Corvan warrior stood 8 feet tall, his 4 arms each holding a different weapon. Energy flowed along the edges of his blades, and his armor gleamed with protective shields. Thix-9 had fought in 100 wars. His people conquered star systems before humans learned to make fire. He carried weapons that could cut through the hull of a starship. The battle beast looked at him and made a sound. Somewhere between a growl and a laugh, the fight lasted 30 seconds. Thix-9 attacked with all 4 weapons at once, moving faster than human eyes could follow. His energy blade struck the creature's scales and bounced off like sticks hitting a mountain. His plasma cannon fired bolts that should have melted steel. They left small black marks on the beast's hide that faded within moments. The creature moved once, Its tail swept around in a wide arc, struck the Corvan warrior in the chest and sent him flying across the arena. Thyax 9 hit the far wall with a sound like thunder, then slid to the ground unconscious. Medical teams rushed onto the arena floor to carry him away. The battle beast watched them with what looked like boredom. Second challenger, the voice announced. Zephyreet Crystal Master Velkoran. The next warrior looked like a living statue made of blue crystal. Light flowed through her transparent body as she raised her hands. The air around her shimmered as she gathered power from the arena's energy systems. Velkoran had been alive for 600 years. Her people could control matter at the molecular level. She could turn sand into diamond or make water as hard as steel. The battle beast tilted its head slightly as if curious. Velkoran released her power. The arena floor around the creature turned into a cage of crystal spears, each one sharp enough to pierce tank armor. They struck the beast from all sides at once. The spears shattered like glass hitting a stone wall. The creature opened its mouth and roared. The sound was not just noise. It carried some kind of psychic force that hit everyone in the arena like a physical blow. Half the crowd screamed and covered their ears. The other half simply froze in terror. Velkoran collapsed where she stood, her crystal body flickering as she lost consciousness. More medical teams, more unconscious warriors carried away. Third challenger, the voice announced, though it sounded less confident now. Synthoid Combat Unit Designation 77 Alpha. The machine warrior that entered the arena looked like death itself. Its metal body was built for one purpose: destroying things that could not be destroyed by normal means. Nuclear power cores hummed inside its chest. Weapons systems that could level city blocks folded out from its arms and shoulders. 77 Alpha had been built by the most advanced artificial intelligence in the galaxy. Every battle the Synthoids had ever fought had been recorded and analyzed. The machine knew 17,000 different ways to kill. The battle beast yawned. The machine attacked with everything it had: missiles, energy beams, gravity weapons, sonic disruptors. The arena filled with smoke and flashing lights. When the smoke cleared, the battle beast stood in exactly the same spot, looking completely unharmed. 77 Alpha tried to retreat and recalculate. The creature moved faster than thought, crossed the arena in 2 steps, and grabbed the machine warrior in one massive claw. There was a sound of tearing metal, and pieces of the Synthoid scattered across the sand. The arena fell completely silent. Commander Daeho Kim felt his mouth go dry. Ambassador Su Min-yoon sat down heavily in her chair. Dr. Min-ae Kang pulled her son closer to her side. Citizens of the galaxy, the arena voice announced, as you have witnessed, the battle beast of Necros remains unconquered. However, the challenge remains open. Any species that can subdue this creature will be granted full voting rights in the Galactic Council and premium trading status throughout known space. The voice paused, and when it continued, there was something almost mocking in its tone. The human delegation has requested permission to make an attempt. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Not cruel laughter exactly, but the kind people make when a child says they want to fly by flapping their arms. Down in the arena, the battle beast looked up at the human observation platform. For just a moment, its burning red eyes seemed to focus directly on young Tae-young. The boy did not look away. The human delegation gathered in their assigned quarters after witnessing the 3 devastating defeats. Commander Daeho Kim paced back and forth across the small room while the others sat around a metal table covered with data, tablets, and weapon specifications. We have to try something different, said Captain Jae Sung Park, studying battle footage on his screen. Every direct attack has failed. The creature adapts too quickly. Ambassador Su Min-yoon rubbed her temples. The political pressure was enormous. Earth needed full galactic citizenship to survive in this universe of advanced civilizations. Without it, humans would remain second-class beings cut off from the best trade routes and scientific knowledge. The other species are already making jokes about us, she said quietly. I heard 2 Corvan diplomats laughing about how we will probably try to talk the beast to death. Dr. Min-ae Kang looked up from her research notes. Maybe talking is not such a bad idea. We know nothing about this creature's psychology. Everyone treats it like a simple monster. But did you see its eyes? There is intelligence there. Intelligence or not, it just destroyed a Synthoid combat unit like it was made of paper, replied Captain Park. Our best weapons are toys compared to what we just saw fail. Young Tae-young sat in the corner, playing with a small electronic toy his mother had brought to keep him quiet. but he was listening to every word the adult said. He had watched the battles in the arena with wide eyes, noting things the grown-ups seemed to miss. "Who goes first?" asked Commander Kim, stopping his pacing to look around the table. Captain Park stood up slowly. "I will. I have the most combat experience, and my team has been training for scenarios like this." "This is not like any scenario we trained for," Dr. Kang said softly. But the captain was already gathering his equipment. 3 hours later, Captain Jae-sung Park entered the arena with 5 of Earth's best soldiers. They wore the most advanced armor humanity could produce, though it looked simple compared to the Corvin golden suits or Zephyrite crystal formations. The crowd had grown larger since the morning battles. Word of the human challenge had spread, and aliens came to watch what many expected to be the shortest fight of the tournament. The battle beast waited in the center of the arena, perfectly still. It watched the human team spread out in formation with what might have been curiosity. The creature had fought many battles, but these were the first opponents to arrive with such basic equipment. Captain Park raised his hand, and his team opened fire with coordinated precision. Energy bolts struck the beast from all sides at once. The humans had studied the earlier battles carefully. They aimed for spots where the creature's scales seemed thinner, used rotating frequencies to prevent adaptation, and maintained constant movement to avoid counterattacks. For a moment, it seemed to work. The energy bolts left small burns on the creature's hide. The beast roared and shook its massive head, apparently feeling pain for the first time in the tournament. Then something changed. The burn marks began to fade. The creature's scales shifted color, becoming darker and more reflective. The next volley of energy bolts bounced off harmlessly. "Switch to kinetic rounds," Captain Park ordered through his comm system. The soldiers switched to explosive projectiles, filling the air with smoke and fire. The blast would have destroyed a building, but when the smoke cleared, the battle beast stood unharmed. Its scales had somehow become harder, able to absorb the kinetic energy without damage. The creature moved with deadly speed. Its tail swept through the human formation, sending 3 soldiers flying. Captain Park rolled aside and fired a magnetic net designed to tangle the beast's legs. The battle beast caught the net in its claws and tore it apart like tissue paper. It looked directly at Captain Park and made that terrible roar again. The sound hit the human officer like a physical blow, making his vision blur and his knees shake. Park tried to retreat, but the creature was already moving. Only the intervention of arena security fields saved the human team from the same fate as the synthoid warrior. Medical teams carried the unconscious soldiers away while the crowd murmured in disappointment. The humans had lasted longer than expected, but the result was the same. Dr. Yoon-ji Lee was next to try. As Earth's leading expert on alien biology, she approached the problem from a scientific angle. She had spent weeks studying what little data existed about creatures from the Necros system. "The beast is clearly more than animal intelligence," she explained to her team as they prepared their equipment. "But every biological system has weaknesses. We just need to find the right chemical combination." Dr. Lee entered the arena carrying no weapons, only a collection of devices that looked like small silver boxes. Her plan was elegant in its simplicity. Instead of trying to hurt the creature, she would calm it down using precisely targeted chemical agents. The battle beast watched her approach with obvious interest. This human carried no energy weapons or explosive devices. It tilted its massive head, trying to understand what new threat she might represent. Dr. Lee activated her first device. Calming pheromones filled the air, chemicals that had proven effective on dozens of different alien species. The beast sniffed the air and seemed to relax slightly. Encouraged by this response, Dr. Lee activated her second device. This one released neural inhibitors designed to reduce aggressive behavior in predatory species. For a moment, the creature actually sat down on its haunches. The crowd grew quiet, wondering if this human might succeed where warriors and weapons had failed. Then, the battle beast stood up again. It looked at Dr. Lee with what seemed like disappointment, as if she had tried to trick it with cheap magic. The creature opened its mouth and breathed out, expelling all the chemicals from its system in one forceful exhale. Dr. Lee tried her neural disruptors, devices that should have interfered with the beast's nervous system. The creature's scales began to glow with a faint electrical charge, neutralizing the disruptors before they could take effect. Every chemical agent, every biological weapon, every scientific approach Dr. Lee tried was countered within seconds. The beast's adaptive abilities worked on more than just physical attacks. It could apparently adjust its entire biology to resist new threats. When Dr. Lee finally ran out of options, she stood in the middle of the arena looking small and helpless. The battle beast approached her slowly, not with the violent intent it had shown to the warriors, but with something that looked like gentle curiosity. It lowered its massive head until it was level with the human scientist, studying her face with those burning red eyes. For a moment, Dr. Lee thought she saw something almost sad in that ancient gaze. Then arena security activated the emergency shields, ending the encounter before the creature could decide whether this human was worth destroying. The third human attempt came from Master Ho-Jin Choi, Earth's greatest martial artist. He had studied fighting techniques from a dozen human cultures and developed new forms that combined the best of each tradition. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways, he told the human delegation before entering the arena. All this technology has failed. Perhaps what we need is the simple courage of a warrior facing a worthy opponent. Master Choi entered the arena wearing only simple cloth clothing and carrying no weapons except his own hands and feet. He bowed respectfully to the battle beast, treating it as an equal rather than a monster to be destroyed. The creature seemed puzzled by this display of courtesy. None of its previous opponents had shown respect. Most had attacked immediately, viewing it as nothing more than an obstacle to overcome. Master Choi began to move, flowing through combat forms that had been perfected over thousands of years of human conflict. His strikes were precise, targeting pressure points and weak spots with the accumulated wisdom of countless martial artists. He was fast enough to land several hits before the beast could react. His fists struck scales with impacts that should have stunned any normal creature. His kicks found gaps in the creature's armor that no one else had even noticed. For 30 seconds, it looked like the human martial artist might actually succeed. He moved like water around the beast's attacks, struck like lightning when opportunities appeared, and showed the kind of fighting skill that had made him legendary on Earth. But 30 seconds was all he got. The battle beast had been studying his movements, learning his patterns, adapting to his speed and technique. When it finally counterattacked, it moved with the same flowing grace that Master Choi had demonstrated, but backed by 12 feet of muscle and bone. One casual swipe of the creature's claw sent the martial arts master flying across the arena. He hit the sand hard and did not get up. As medical teams carried Master Choi away, the crowd began to laugh openly at the human attempts. 3 different approaches, 3 complete failures. The humans had proven they were no better than any other species at facing the impossible. In the observation area, young Tae-young watched his mother wipe away tears of frustration. Ambassador Su Min-yoon stared at her hands, knowing that Earth's chances for galactic citizenship were slipping away with each failed attempt. But the boy was not watching the adults. He was watching the battle beast down in the arena. While everyone else saw only an unbeatable monster, Tae-young noticed something different. After each battle, the creature returned to the same spot in the center of the arena. It moved in a pattern, walking the same path along the walls before settling down. When it sat, it always faced the same direction. Most importantly, after defeating each opponent, the beast looked up at the observation decks as if searching for something. Its red eyes scanned the crowd with an expression that looked almost lonely. Tae-young tugged on his mother's sleeve. "Mom, I think the big animal is sad." Dr. Min Kang barely heard him. She was too busy watching Commander Kim prepare for what might be humanity's final attempt to tame the unbeatable beast. The human delegation sat in their quarters like soldiers after a lost battle. Commander Dae-ho Kim stared at tactical displays that showed nothing useful. Captain Jae-sung Park held an ice pack against his bruised ribs. Dr. Yoon-ji Lee checked and rechecked her equipment readings, hoping to find some clue she had missed. Ambassador Su Min-yoon paced near the window that looked out at the arena complex. "We have one more chance," she said quietly. "If Commander Kim fails tomorrow, Earth loses its opportunity for full galactic citizenship. We will remain a minor species forever." "The creature adapts to everything we try," said Dr. Min Kang, looking up from her research notes. "Physical attacks, chemical weapons, martial arts techniques. It learns and counters within seconds. How do you fight something that becomes stronger with every attempt?" Tae-young sat on the floor in the corner, building something with his construction blocks. The adults had been talking for hours about strategies and weapons and political consequences. They used big words and spoke in worried voices, but they never asked him what he thought. "Maybe we should withdraw," suggested Captain Park. "Accept that some challenges cannot be overcome. There is no shame in recognizing a superior opponent. There is shame in giving up without understanding what we are fighting," replied Dr. Kang. "That creature is not just a weapon or a monster. I have been studying the footage from today's battles. Its behavior patterns suggest complex intelligence, possibly even emotional responses." Ambassador Yoon stopped pacing. "What kind of emotional responses?" "Frustration when opponents use the same tactics repeatedly. Curiosity when faced with new approaches. And after each victory, it shows what I can only describe as disappointment." Commander Kim frowned. "Disappointment?" "Watch the recordings carefully. After defeating each challenger, the beast looks around the arena as if searching for something. Its posture suggests loneliness rather than triumph." Tae-young looked up from his blocks. The adults were finally talking about something interesting instead of just complaining about their failures. "Mom," he said, "can I go look at the big animal again?" Dr. Kang shook her head without really listening. "Not now, dear. The adults are having an important discussion." But Tae-young had already lost interest in the adult conversation. They were using complicated words to describe things he had already figured out. The big animal was lonely and sad and wanted someone to understand it. That seemed obvious to him. While the adults continued their worried discussions, Tae-young quietly slipped out of the quarters. The corridors of the arena complex were mostly empty during rest periods between tournament days. A few maintenance workers moved through the halls, but none of them paid attention to one small human boy. Tae-young had memorized the path to the observation deck during their earlier visits. He wanted to see the creature when it was not fighting anyone. Maybe when it was alone, he could understand what it really wanted. The observation deck was dark and empty. Through the reinforced viewing portal, Tae-young could see down into the arena where the battle beast spent its time between battles. The creature was not sleeping or resting like a normal animal. Instead, it moved around the arena in careful patterns. The boy pressed his face against the thick glass and watched. The beast walked along the walls in a specific sequence, touching certain spots with its claws. It would pause at regular intervals, tilt its head as if listening to something, then continue its circuit. This was not random behavior. Tae-young had seen similar patterns when his mother worked with research animals back on Earth. Animals in captivity often developed repetitive behaviors. When they were stressed or bored or lonely, the creature completed its walking pattern and moved to the center of the arena. There it began a different routine, lowering its head and making soft sounds that were very different from the terrifying roars it produced during battles. These sounds were almost musical, rising and falling in a rhythm that reminded Tae-young of whale songs he had heard in nature documentaries. "It is singing," the boy whispered to himself. As he watched, the battle beast raised its massive head and looked directly at the observation portal where Tae-young stood. The creature's red eyes met the boy's brown ones through the thick glass. For a long moment, neither moved. Then the beast did something that made Tae-young's heart race with excitement. It tilted its head to one side, the same way his dog back home did when trying to understand a new command. The creature was curious about him. Tae-young waved slowly. The beast watched his hand movement with obvious interest. When the boy stopped waving, the creature made a soft chirping sound that was almost like a question. "You want to talk to someone?" Tae-young said softly, "but nobody understands your language." The creature's ears twitched at the sound of his voice, even though it could not possibly hear him through the soundproof glass. But something about the boy's tone and body language seemed to register with the ancient intelligence behind those red eyes. "Tae-young," the sharp voice made the boy jump. Security guard Bo-ram Shin stood in the entrance to the observation deck, looking worried and angry. "What are you doing here alone? Your mother is looking everywhere for you." Bo-ram had been hired as part of the arena security team, but before that, he had worked as an animal trainer on several human colonies. He knew how to read the behavior of dangerous creatures, which was why he noticed something unusual as he approached the viewing portal. The battle beast was not in its normal resting position. Instead, it stood alert and focused, watching the boy with an intensity that was different from its usual bored indifference. "Has it been watching you this whole time?" Bo-ram asked, moving to stand beside Tae-young. The boy nodded. "It is lonely. It wants someone to understand what it is saying." Boram studied the creature's posture and body language with professional interest. As an animal trainer, he had learned to recognize signs of intelligence and emotional need in many different species. What he saw in the arena below made him thoughtful. "Tell me what you have observed," he said seriously. Tae-young was surprised. This was the first adult who had asked his opinion instead of telling him to be quiet. "It walks the same path every time," the boy explained. "Like when our dog back home gets nervous and paces. And it makes different sounds when nobody is fighting it. Happy sounds, not angry ones. What else? It always looks up here after the battles. Like it is hoping someone will come talk to it instead of trying to hurt it." Boram nodded slowly. His years of experience with animal behavior told him the boy might be onto something important. But he also knew that no adult would listen to the observations of an 8-year-old child, especially when the fate of an entire species hung in the balance. "We should get you back to your mother," he said gently. "She is very worried." As they walked back through the corridors, Boram thought about what he had seen. The child's observations matched his own professional assessment of the creature's behavior. The beast showed clear signs of intelligence, loneliness, and a desire for social interaction. But it had been treated as nothing more than a weapon for 3 centuries. They found Dr. Minhye Kang in the corridor outside the human quarters, looking frantic. "Tae-young, where were you?" "I have been searching for 20 minutes. He was at the observation deck watching the creature, Boram explained. "Dr. Kang, I think you should listen to what your son has noticed about the beast's behavior patterns." Dr. Kang was too relieved to find her son safe to be angry with him. As they returned to the quarters, Tae-young excitedly told his mother about everything he had observed. The walking patterns, the musical sounds, the way the creature looked at him with curiosity instead of anger. "It just wants a friend, Mom," he concluded. "All the fighting people try to hurt it, but nobody tries to be nice to it." Dr. Kang listened with growing amazement. Her son's simple observations matched the behavioral patterns she had been struggling to understand in her scientific analysis. The child had seen what teams of experts had missed. "We need to tell the others," she said. But when Dr. Kang tried to present her son's observations to the human delegation, the response was exactly what Boram had expected. "We cannot base our strategy on the imagination of a child," said Commander Kim firmly. "Tomorrow I make our final attempt with experimental weapons that could damage the entire station if used incorrectly. We cannot afford to waste time on childish theories about the creature's feelings." Captain Park nodded in agreement. "With respect to your son's observations, we are dealing with the most dangerous predator in known space. Treating it like a pet could get us all killed." Ambassador Yoon looked torn between hope and desperation. "Dr. Kang, I understand that your son has noticed things we missed, but we cannot risk Earth's future on the behavioral theories of an 8-year-old. Only Dr. Kang and Boram believed that Tae-young might have discovered something crucial, but their voices were not enough to change the delegation's plans for one final, desperate assault using humanity's most dangerous weapons. As the adults returned to their tactical planning, Tae-young played quietly with his blocks. He had tried to help the grown-ups understand, but they preferred their complicated solutions to his simple observations. The boy knew the big animal was not evil or impossible to defeat. It was just lonely and misunderstood. Tomorrow, when the adults tried to hurt it again with their biggest weapons, the creature would defend itself and probably destroy them all. Unless something changed, unless someone finally tried to communicate instead of attack, the battle beast would remain unconquered, and Earth would lose its chance to join the galactic community. Tae-young built a small house with his blocks and placed a toy animal inside it. Even the fiercest creatures needed a safe place to call home. The next morning brought chaos to the arena complex. Commander Dae-ho Kim and his team had worked through the night preparing humanity's final attempt to subdue the battle beast. Their plan involved experimental gravitational weapons that had never been tested on a living creature. The gravity disruptors should immobilize any carbon-based life form, explained the team's weapons specialist as they loaded the heavy equipment. "If this fails, nothing in our arsenal can possibly work." Dr. Minhye Kang watched the preparations with growing worry. The weapons were powerful enough to crush a building. If something went wrong, they could endanger everyone. In the arena complex, "This is madness," she said to Ambassador Soo Min-yoon. "We are treating the creature like an object to be destroyed rather than an intelligence to be understood." "We have no choice," the ambassador replied, though she looked as worried as Dr. Kang felt. "If we fail today, Earth remains a second-class member of the galactic community forever. Our children will grow up in a universe where humans are considered primitive and unworthy of respect. Tae-young sat beside his mother, swinging his legs and watching the adults prepare their dangerous weapons. He had tried to tell them about the creature's loneliness, but they preferred to trust their machines instead of simple observation. The boy knew their plan would fail. The big animal had adapted to every weapon used against it so far. These new gravity guns would probably just make it angry. And when angry creatures got scared, they sometimes did things that hurt everyone nearby. As the human team made final preparations for their assault, alarms began sounding throughout the complex. Red warning lights flashed in the corridors, and automated voices announced emergency protocols in a dozen different languages. Containment breach in Section 7, the announcement repeated. All personnel evacuate immediately. This is not a drill. Boram Shin burst into the human quarters where the delegation was gathered. His security uniform was torn and he looked like he had been running for his life. "The beast has escaped," he gasped. "Something went wrong with the holding field generators. The creature broke through 3 levels of security barriers and is loose in the station." Commander Kim grabbed his weapons immediately. "Where is it now?" "Moving through the residential sections. It seems to be hunting, but not randomly. The creature is following some kind of pattern, like it is searching for something specific." Through the complex's communication system, they could hear screams and panic from other sections. The battle beast was free to move through areas filled with thousands of alien civilians who had come to watch the tournament. "We have to stop it," said Captain Park, checking his energy rifle. "No," said Dr. Kang firmly. "If we attack it now while it is already agitated, it will go into full combat mode. The casualties could be enormous." Ambassador Yoon was receiving updates through her diplomatic communication device. "Galactic Council forces are mobilizing, but they cannot reach this section for at least an hour. We are on our own." The group could hear the creature moving through the corridors. Its heavy footsteps shook the walls and its psychic roars sent waves of terror through anyone nearby. But strangest of all, the beast seemed to be moving toward their section of the complex. "It is coming this way," whispered Boram, monitoring the security feeds on his portable scanner. "How is that possible?" asked Commander Kim. "The creature has no way of knowing where we are." Dr. Kang suddenly understood. "It does know. During yesterday's battles, it watched our observation area. It learned to recognize us, and now it is tracking our location. Why would it hunt us specifically?" Captain Park wondered. Tae-young tugged on his mother's sleeve. "It is not hunting," he said quietly. "It is looking for someone who understands." The adults were too frightened to listen to the boy's theory. They were too busy planning escape routes and defensive positions. But Tae-young knew he was right. The creature had made eye contact with him through the observation portal. It had recognized that one small human was different from all the others who had tried to hurt it. The footsteps grew louder. Through the walls, they could hear the beast moving closer, following corridors that led directly to the human quarters. Other aliens were fleeing in panic, but the creature ignored them completely. "Emergency evacuation," ordered Commander Kim. "We moved to the escape pods immediately." But as the human delegation rushed toward the exit, the lights went out. Emergency power kicked in, bathing everything in red light that made the corridors look like something from a nightmare. In the distance, they could hear the sound of metal being torn apart as the beast forced its way through security barriers. In the confusion and darkness, Tae-young became separated from the group. The adults were moving fast, focused on reaching safety, and the small boy could not keep up with their longer legs. He found himself alone in a corridor that had been full of people just moments before. The emergency lighting cast strange shadows on the walls. The boy could hear his mother calling his name somewhere in the distance, but the sound was fading as the group moved further away. He tried to follow, but the corridors all looked the same in the red light. Then he heard something else. Heavy breathing getting closer. The metallic scrape of claws on the floor. The beast had found him. Tae-young turned around slowly and saw the creature at the far end of the corridor. It looked even bigger in the narrow space, its massive form filling the hallway from floor to ceiling. The red emergency lights reflected off its dark scales, making it look like something made of shadow and fire. The creature approached slowly, not with the violent rush it had shown during the arena battles, but with careful, deliberate steps. Its red eyes were fixed on the small human boy who stood alone in the empty corridor. Every instinct told Tae-young to run, to scream, to hide behind something solid. But there was nowhere to go, and something in the beast's approach reminded him of the way nervous animals moved when they were not sure if they should trust someone. The creature stopped 10 feet away and lowered its massive head until it was level with the boy. This close, Tae-young could see that the beast's eyes were not just red, but filled with an ancient sadness that made his heart hurt. For 3 centuries, this magnificent creature had been forced to fight challengers who saw it only as an obstacle to overcome. Warriors, scientists, and machines had tried to defeat it, but no one had ever tried to understand it. No one had looked into its eyes and seen the loneliness that lived there. Tae-young remembered everything his mother had taught him about approaching frightened animals. Move slowly, speak calmly, show respect instead of aggression. Most importantly, never show fear even when you feel it. The boy stood up as straight as he could and looked directly into the creature's burning red eyes. He thought about his dog back home, about the times he had successfully calmed nervous animals in his mother's research lab, about all the simple truths that adults seemed to forget when they became scared. Then, in a clear voice that showed no fear despite his racing heart, Tae-young spoke one simple word: sit. The word seemed to hang in the air between them. The beast had heard thousands of different sounds during its battles. Roars of challenge, cries of pain, the mechanical noises of weapons and machinery, but it had never heard anything like this. The boy's voice carried no aggression, no attempt to dominate or control. Instead, it held the kind of calm authority that pack leaders used when guiding their followers. It was the sound of someone who expected to be obeyed not through fear, but through natural respect. For the first time in 3 centuries, the battle beast of Necros paused in the middle of an action. Its massive head tilted slightly as it processed this new experience. The creature had been born to respond to proper leadership, but no leader had spoken to it in so long that it had almost forgotten what such a voice sounded like. Slowly, incredibly, the beast lowered its haunches to the floor. Its tail curled around its feet, and its head remained lowered in a posture that any animal behaviorist would recognize as submission to accepted authority. The most feared predator in known space had just obeyed a human child. The most feared predator in known space had just obeyed a human child. In the distance, security cameras captured the moment as emergency response teams watched in amazement. Dr. Min Kang, following the sounds of her son's voice through the corridors, arrived just in time to see the impossible sight of her 8-year-old boy standing calmly beside the sitting battle beast. The creature that had destroyed armies was now looking at Tae-young with an expression that could only be described as hopeful. After centuries of fighting, it had finally found someone who spoke its language. The language of leadership, respect, and simple understanding between intelligent beings. The security control room fell completely silent as dozens of monitors showed the same impossible scene. The battle beast of Necros, the creature that had never been defeated in 3 centuries of combat, sat obediently beside a human child in an empty corridor. "Is this really happening?" whispered one of the Corvin technicians, adjusting his recording equipment to make sure the cameras were working properly. "All weapons systems are standing down," reported the Zephyrite security chief. "The creature is showing no aggressive behavior." "Repeat, no aggressive behavior detected." Dr. Min Kang ran through the corridors toward her son, her heart pounding with fear and amazement. Behind her, the rest of the human delegation followed, along with security teams from 3 different species. Everyone wanted to see the miracle with their own eyes. When they reached the corridor where Tae-young stood, they stopped at a safe distance. The boy was talking to the beast in a calm, gentle voice, the same tone he used when playing with pets back home. "You are not a bad animal," he was saying. "Everyone thinks you are scary, but you are just lonely. Nobody ever tried to be your friend." The battle beast listened to every word, its massive head tilted in concentration. When Tae-young reached out slowly to touch its nose, the creature remained perfectly still, allowing the small human hand to make contact with scales that had deflected the most powerful weapons in the galaxy. Dr. Kang wanted to rush forward and pull her son to safety, but Bo-ram Shin caught her arm. "Wait," the security guard said quietly. "Look at the creature's body language. It is completely relaxed. If we interrupt now, we might destroy whatever connection they have established." Commander Kim watched through his tactical scanner, hardly believing the readings. The beast's stress hormones have dropped to normal levels. Its aggressive neural patterns have completely disappeared. How is this possible? Asked Ambassador Su Min-yoon. Every military expert in the galaxy has studied this creature. No one has ever achieved anything like this. Dr. Kang studied the scene with her trained eye for animal behavior. Tae-young is not trying to defeat or control the creature. He is treating it as an equal, showing the kind of respect that intelligent beings respond to instinctively. News of the event spread instantly throughout the arena complex. Aliens from dozens of species abandoned their evacuation procedures to watch the live feeds. The impossible was happening before their eyes, and no one wanted to miss a moment of it. In the Galactic Council chambers, emergency sessions were called as leaders tried to understand what they were witnessing. For 300 years, the battle beast had been considered an uncontrollable force of nature. Now a human child had accomplished what armies could not. The implications are staggering, said Council Leader Vex Prime, studying the footage. If humans can communicate with the battle beast, what other supposedly impossible problems might they solve? Back in the corridor, Tae-young was teaching the creature simple commands. Stay, he said, holding up his hand. The beast remained motionless. Good animal, the boy praised, and the creature's eyes seemed to brighten with pleasure. For the first time in centuries, the battle beast was experiencing positive social interaction. Every other encounter had involved pain, conflict, or failed attempts at domination. But this small human offered something completely different: acceptance, kindness, and genuine respect. The creature began to make soft, rumbling sounds, very different from its terrifying battle roars. These were the same musical sounds Tae-young had heard through the observation portal, but now he could hear them clearly. It is trying to talk to me, the boy said excitedly, looking back at the watching adults. It has its own language, but nobody ever listened before. Dr. Kang slowly approached, moving with the careful steps she used around nervous research animals. The beast watched her but showed no aggression, apparently trusting that anyone connected to the boy must be safe. Tae-young, she said softly, can you ask it to move back to the arena? We need to show everyone that it can be controlled safely. The boy looked up at the massive creature and spoke in the same calm, authoritative voice he had used before. Come on, big friend. Let us go home. To the amazement of everyone watching, the battle beast stood up and began following Tae-young down the corridor. It walked beside him like a well-trained pet, occasionally making soft sounds that seemed like responses to the boy's chatter. The procession that moved through the arena complex was unlike anything in galactic history. A human child led the most feared predator in known space through corridors filled with stunned alien observers. Security teams followed at a respectful distance, but their weapons remained powered down. When they reached the arena, Tae-young walked onto the sand with the beast beside him. The creature that had destroyed 3 challengers just days before now moved with gentle precision, careful not to accidentally step on its small companion. The observation decks filled rapidly as word spread throughout the complex. Aliens who had fled in terror during the escape now returned to witness, something that would be talked about for generations. Show them you are not scary, Tae-young said to the beast. Show them you can be a good friend. The creature responded by sitting in the center of the arena and lowering its head in a peaceful posture. When Tae-young gestured toward the observation decks, the beast looked up at the thousands of watching aliens and made a sound that was clearly a greeting rather than a threat. The crowd reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Beings who had considered the battle beast an unstoppable monster now saw it responding to simple commands from a human child. The political implications hit everyone at once. Extraordinary, whispered the Corvin ambassador to his aide. We have completely underestimated human capabilities. If they can do this with the battle beast, what other problems might they solve? Wondered the Zephyrid Council representative. In the arena, Dr. Kang finally felt safe enough to join her son on the sand. The beast watched her approach with calm interest, clearly recognizing her as part of Tae-young's family group. How did you know what to do? She asked her son. Tae-young shrugged. The way children do when adults ask about things that seem obvious to them. It was easy, Mom. The big animal just wanted someone to be nice to it. Everyone kept trying to hurt it, but nobody tried to be its friend. The simplicity of the explanation made it even more profound. The galaxy's greatest military minds had focused on defeating the creature through force. While the solution required nothing more than basic kindness and respect, Ambassador Su Min-yoon received an urgent communication from the Galactic Council. The message was brief but life-changing for humanity. The human species has demonstrated capabilities beyond our previous assessments, the official statement read. Effective immediately, Earth is granted full voting membership in the Galactic Council, along with premium trading status and access to advanced technologies. We did it, she whispered, hardly able to believe their success. We actually did it. But the real celebration was happening in the arena, where an 8-year-old boy was playing with the most feared creature in the galaxy. Tae-young had taught the beast to respond to hand signals, to move in different directions, and even to perform simple tricks that delighted the watching crowd. Most importantly, the creature was happy. For the first time in 3 centuries, the battle beast of Necros was experiencing joy, companionship, and the kind of mental stimulation that intelligent beings needed to thrive. What happens now? Asked Commander Kim, watching the incredible bond between child and creature. Dr. Kang smiled as she watched her son and his new friend. Now we learn. This is just the beginning of understanding what humans can accomplish when we approach problems with empathy instead of force. The battle beast made its musical sound again, and Tae-young laughed with delight. The sound of a child's laughter echoing through the arena somehow seemed more powerful than all the weapons that had failed to defeat the creature. It was the sound of a new era beginning, where humanity's greatest strength would not be their technology or military might, but their ability to see the potential for friendship in the most unlikely places. 3 months after the events at Vorthak Prime, the galaxy was still talking about what the media had dubbed the Kang Incident. Dr. Minhee Kang found herself at the center of the largest xenobiology research project in galactic history, leading teams of scientists from dozens of different species. The HFY research station orbiting Earth had been transformed into something unprecedented, a facility where the most advanced alien minds worked alongside human-animal behaviorists to unlock secrets that had puzzled the galaxy for centuries. The breakthrough came when we stopped thinking of these creatures as weapons or obstacles. Dr. Kang explained to a gathering of Galactic Council representatives. Instead, we approached them as intelligent beings with complex social and emotional needs. The presentation hall was filled with beings who had traveled from across known space to learn about human methods. The battle beast, now known throughout the galaxy by the name Tae-young had given him, sat calmly beside the stage. Beck had become the most famous creature in galactic history, but more importantly, he had become the key to understanding dozens of other uncontrollable species. When we applied basic animal psychology principles to the Christek swarm of Rigel 7, we discovered they were not randomly aggressive. Dr. Kang continued. They were protecting what they believed to be their young. Once we relocated their breeding ground safely, they became completely peaceful. In the audience, Tae-young sat with his tablet, drawing pictures of the new friends he had made. The 9-year-old boy had become something of a celebrity, but he was more interested in learning about different alien species than in giving interviews. The success stories kept mounting. The Void Hunters of the Crab Nebula turned out to be desperately homesick, attacking ships because they contained materials that reminded them of their destroyed homeworld. When human psychologists helped them process their grief, the attack stopped completely. The screaming winds of Proxima were not hostile weather patterns, but a form of gaseous life that was trying to communicate. Human linguists working with child development specialists discovered that the beings were actually quite young and simply wanted to play. The pattern is consistent across every case we have studied, reported Dr. Yoon-ji Lee, who had become the head of the new interspecies psychology department. What we call aggressive or uncontrollable behavior is usually a response to unmet psychological needs. Ambassador Su Min-yoon watched the presentations with pride and amazement. Earth had gone from being a minor species to becoming the galaxy's center for diplomatic and psychological research. Human universities were flooded with applications from alien students who wanted to study what they called the human approach. We are already working on that, replied Dr. Kang. We have identified several humans with similar intuitive abilities. Most of them are children or people who work closely with animals. There seems to be a connection between empathy and the ability to understand non-human intelligence. The research had revealed something remarkable about human psychology. While other species had developed impressive technological capabilities, humans had evolved a unique capacity for cross-species empathy. Their evolutionary history of working with animals had given them mental tools that proved invaluable in galactic relations. The funny thing is, we thought our lack of advanced technology made us weak, said Captain Jae-Sung Park, who now headed the new Interspecies Security Division. But our experience with natural intelligence gave us advantages we never recognized. The success had not gone unnoticed by the galaxy's power structures. Species that had dominated galactic politics for millennia were suddenly finding themselves dependent on human expertise. The shift in influence was dramatic and largely peaceful, based on respect for human abilities, rather than fear of human weapons. Earth has become the Switzerland of space, observed Commander Kim. Everyone trusts us to mediate their conflicts because we approach problems without the baggage of ancient rivalries. Beck made a series of musical sounds that Tae-Young had learned to recognize as requests for attention. The boy looked up from his drawing and immediately understood what his friend wanted. He wants to show the visitors his new trick, Tae-Young announced. The creature had indeed learned several impressive behaviors during his time at the research station. Working with human trainers, Beck had developed problem-solving skills that amazed even veteran xenobiologists. He could operate simple computer interfaces, recognize individual beings by scent, and even perform basic mathematical calculations using colored blocks. "Watch this," said Tae-Young, setting up a puzzle box that Dr. Kang's team had designed. The puzzle required solving a sequence of locks in the correct order, something that should challenge even advanced artificial intelligence. Beck studied the box for a moment, then began manipulating the locks with surprising delicacy for such massive claws. He solved the puzzle in less than 2 minutes, then looked around expectantly for the praise he had learned to enjoy. "Remarkable," whispered one of the Zephyrite observers. "We have been studying artificial intelligence for centuries, but this creature shows problem-solving abilities that rival our best computer systems. The difference is that Bayek is motivated by social connection rather than programmed objectives," explained Dr. Lee. "He solves puzzles because he enjoys the positive feedback, not because he is commanded to do so." The implications for artificial intelligence development were staggering. Several species had struggled for generations to create truly intelligent machines, but they had focused on processing power rather than emotional motivation. Human insights into the role of social connection and intelligence were revolutionizing AI research across the galaxy. As the presentation concluded, Tae-Young approached the group of distinguished visitors with his characteristic lack of intimidation by authority figures. "Would you like to meet Beck properly?" he asked the assembled ambassadors and scientists. "He likes meeting new people, but you have to let him smell your hand first so he knows you are friendly." One by one, beings who commanded star fleets and ruled entire systems cautiously extended their hands toward the massive creature. Beck greeted each visitor with gentle curiosity, his intelligent red eyes studying their faces with obvious interest. "He is deciding whether he likes you," Tae-Young explained seriously. "Beck is very good at telling if people are nice or if they just pretend to be nice." The casual way the boy interacted with the creature that had once terrified the galaxy served as a powerful reminder of how completely the situation had changed. Fear had been replaced by understanding, conflict by cooperation. Dr. Kang watched her son with a mixture of pride and amazement. The 9-year-old had become the galaxy's unofficial ambassador for interspecies understanding, but he remained remarkably unchanged by his fame. To him, Bayek was simply a friend who happened to be very large and very special. "What is next for the program?" asked the Corvin ambassador. "We have identified 17 more species that have been classified as uncontrollable or hostile," replied Dr. Kang. "Our preliminary analysis suggests that most of them are simply misunderstood. We plan to approach each case with the same principles that worked with Bayek. And if you succeed, then the galaxy becomes a much more peaceful place. Most conflicts arise from misunderstanding and fear. When beings learn to communicate effectively, they usually discover they have more in common than they realized." As the visitors prepared to leave, Tae-Young made his daily request to his mother. "Can Beck come home with us tonight? He gets lonely in the big research station." Dr. Kang smiled. Her son's apartment had been specially modified to accommodate their unusual family friend. and Beck had indeed become a regular house guest. The sight of the galaxy's most famous predator curled up on an oversized pet bed in a human living room had become one of the research station's most popular video feeds. "Of course he can," she replied, "but remember, he has that interview with the Galactic News Network tomorrow morning." Beck had become something of a media celebrity, appearing in documentaries about interspecies relations and serving as a living symbol of how understanding could triumph over fear. He seemed to enjoy the attention, preening slightly whenever cameras were pointed in his direction. As they prepared to leave the presentation hall, Ambassador Yoon reflected on how completely their situation had changed. A year ago, Earth had been struggling for recognition as a minor species. Now humans were leading the galaxy toward a new era of cooperation and understanding. "It started with one word," she mused, watching Tae-young and Bayek walking together toward the transport bay, one child who had the courage to say sit to the most feared creature in known space. "It was never about the word," replied Dr. Kang. "It was about the intent behind it." Tae-young spoke to Beck as an equal, with respect and confidence but without aggression. That is something no warrior or scientist had ever tried. The transport that carried them back to Earth passed through space that was busier than ever with ships from dozens of species. But instead of the military vessels and trade convoys that had once dominated galactic travel, many of the ships now carried students, researchers, and diplomats eager to learn human approaches to problem solving. The galaxy was changing, one relationship at a time, guided by the simple principle that Tae-young had demonstrated in that corridor on Vorthak Prime. Every intelligent being, no matter how fierce or strange, needed connection, understanding, and respect. And sometimes the greatest victories came not from defeating your enemies, but from discovering that they had never been enemies at all. "Have received requests for human advisors from every major civilization," she announced to the research team. "The Corvan Empire wants help with their prison rehabilitation programs. The Zephyrites are asking for assistance with their artificial intelligence development. Even the Synthoids want to learn about emotional programming." But the real success story was happening right in front of them. Beck had not only adapted to life outside the arena, he had become an active participant in the research program. His intelligence, freed from the stress of constant combat, had revealed itself to be remarkable. The creature could solve complex puzzles, communicate through a combination of sounds and gestures, and even display what could only be called a sense of humor. He had developed a particular fondness for hiding behind pillars and surprising visitors with gentle nudges from his massive head. "Beck has taught us more about his species in 3 months than we learned from 3 centuries of studying him as a combatant," said Boram Shin, who had become the creature's primary caretaker. His people were pack hunters with sophisticated social structures. The loneliness of captivity was slowly driving him insane. Tae-young looked up from his drawing tablet. He was not crazy. He was just sad because nobody wanted to be his friend. The boy's simple explanation had become something of a motto for the research program. Behind all the scientific analysis and behavioral studies was a fundamental truth that humans seemed to understand instinctively. Every intelligent being needed connection, purpose, and respect. Commander Dae-ho Kim, now serving as Earth's military liaison to the Galactic Council, shook his head in wonder. "A year ago, we were considered too primitive to have full galactic citizenship. Now species that have been spacefaring for millennia are coming to us for advice." "It makes sense when you think about it," said Dr. Kang. "Humans spent thousands of years learning to live with other species on Earth. We domesticated wolves, learned to work with horses, studied the behavior of countless animals. Other species developed advanced technology, but they often skipped the step of understanding non-technological intelligence. The implications extended far beyond animal behavior. Human approaches to conflict resolution, based on understanding underlying needs rather than simply suppressing symptoms, were revolutionizing galactic diplomacy. Wars that had raged for centuries were ending as human mediators helped opposing sides understand what they really wanted. The Kang Institute for Interspecies Relations, built in orbit around Earth, had become the galaxy's premier center for diplomatic training. Young beings from hundreds of species came to study human methods of communication, empathy, and conflict resolution. But perhaps the most important change was philosophical. The galaxy had operated for millennia on the assumption that some problems were simply unsolvable. Some conflicts inevitable, some species incompatible. Humans had challenged that assumption by showing that understanding and communication could succeed where force had failed. We are not smarter than other species, Dr. Kang explained to a group of visiting dignitaries. We simply approached these problems from a different angle. Instead of asking how to defeat or control these creatures, we asked what they needed to be happy and healthy. Tae-young had finished his drawing and was showing it to Beck. The creature studied the colorful picture with obvious interest, making soft sounds that everyone had learned to recognize as expressions of pleasure. "What did you draw?" asked his mother. "It is Beck's family," the boy explained. "The people from his home planet before it got broken. He told me about them in his special language." The researchers exchanged meaningful glances. Tae-young had developed an intuitive understanding of Bayek's communication methods that went beyond anything their scientific instruments could measure. The boy could somehow interpret the creature's complex combination of sounds, gestures, and even emotional states. "Perhaps," suggested Ambassador Yoon, "we should consider establishing a new diplomatic corps specifically for interspecies communication. People who can do what Tae-young does naturally."